Yellow! The bout Artem Lobov had with Jason Knight is exactly why competition started wearing gloves. Over time, in order to be feasible, competition realized that most athletes would not be able to last very long without some kind of padding. Innately, building a brand beyond a fighter would become even harder than it is now. They're constantly destroying their hands, thus unable to compete. Also, the injuries the athletes would receive barehanded may require reconstructive surgery, which can get pretty expensive. I know Joe Rogan has stated before that he wished mixed martial arts had no gloves because then athletes would not be able to recklessly tee off on each other due to the extra padding.
I think the real answer is no gloves.
But I also believe that he would prefer it as it would favor his disciplines. Muay Thai being forced to use more elbows and kicks, knees, because your hand can no longer withstand clashing with a hard head. You need the other options. Jiu-Jitsu having the ability to slide just a few more millimeters into a choke without a glove providing resistance to the ability to do so. Taekwondo, beautiful, deceptive and dynamic ability to throw kicks. They would be more relevant simply because the threat of damage to one's hands, or straight up, damage to one's hands has made boxing less effective. Removing gloves, it would completely change the game. But I don't know if I would personally prefer that, having damaging or breaking my own hands. I've done hand conditioning for much of my life, but I've also been in situations defending myself. Even with proper wrist form and conditioning, without hand wraps to support my wrists, I've still rolled them. I've still landed wrong and made it hard to write on paper the next day. Good luck working at an office or writing a test when your hands are too messed up to write. This is an issue everyone who's struck with bare hands have encountered, with few exceptions here and there. Some people just have naturally harder hands, but at the same time, humans have evolved their skulls in counterbalance to this. The truth is, many people are able to mitigate shock from a fist by moving their forehead or crown into that blow. If you punch Jorge Masvidal, for example, in the head with your bare hand, I guarantee you that the vast majority of you will not come out of that exchange happy. Ask Stephen Thompson, a veteran elite kickboxer who at the end of it, even with gloves, could no longer make a fist.
You hurt your hand somewhere in the fight. When you came back, you were shaking it. What happened?
I think in the second round, throwing the lead hand hook, I don't know if it was an elbow or if it was a skull, but I couldn't make a fist in the third round.
Some people just have heads that a normal person cannot punch. At the same time though, Gunnar Nelson is an example of the few who would prefer landing without any protection.
Ideally, no gloves.
How is this possible? In karate, there is an emphasis on hand conditioning, but not only that, the technique is different from boxing. In boxing philosophy, you are to have more of a snap or pop when touching your opponent. It keeps you quick to recover to make sure you're always defensively responsible, whilst through technique and body mechanics, maximizing your speed. Karate is different though. Your arms do stay relaxed when you throw the punch, but it's not the same pop at the end of it. You instead stiffen or tense your arm at the end of the blow. It gives it a more of a pushing quality. This is what allows karatekas to punch through bricks and boards, where doing the same thing with boxing technique will likely hurt your hand instead. You're more likely to switch someone off with boxing technique than you are with karate, not because it can transfer more force, but because of the emphasis it has setting up that pop. Innately, it's not one devastating punch that switches a man off, but the sum of many, set up in a way where the opponent does not see them. Thus, they aren't ready to brace for them. But I would also argue that you are significantly less likely to hurt your hand ungloved using karate technique. The tense push at the end of the punch is more likely to have the opponent move back, which means they're less likely to be a wall, sending the equal and opposite reaction back into the point of contact, your fist. To visualize this, a boxing punch is more likely to crack a rib when it makes contact, but also more likely to break your hand. But the karate punch, on the other hand, is more likely to pierce deeper against the rib's tensile strength. Boxing scales more along the lines of a pop, Karate skills more along the lines of a push. One concentrates a quick burst of force into a small area. The other pushes it through their body.
I've never had to wrap my hands one day, and I've never had a wrist hand injury.
I'm personally glad mixed martial arts wears gloves. I do not like seeing people lose teeth, even with mouth guard. A lot of these fighters have families, they have children they have to go back to. Thus, after competition, I like to know that their children still recognize them. You can call me soft, but it does make practical sense, as I do not see a need to use martial arts outside the arena unless you absolutely have to. If you absolutely have to strike someone in order to be safe, I personally would gladly sacrifice my hand to do so. I do not care if it breaks, so as long as I can protect myself or someone else that I care about. But if I were to regularly do that in competition, there's no way I'd be able to manage a long career. There are only a few people with the anatomy equipped for that. Striking regions available dramatically reduce without gloves. With gloves, you can pop someone anywhere on the head and they'll likely understand that they can't take too many of those for nothing. You can transfer more force bare-fisted, but innately, that works as a double-edged sword depending on where you land, as again, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. If you land on a softer portion of one's face, you may drastically change how that person looks. But also, if you do land on that harder portion of the skull, sorry, but the tensile strength of their forehead in proportion to the small bones in your hand made that exchange just not worth it. They're perfectly fine, and you can't even make a fist anymore. This happened to Artem. He was doing great. He landed some big blows, but at some point, he was definitely not punching the same. He was tired, sure, but also, he definitely injured his hand. A boxer like Paulie Malignaggi, who has had a history of injuring his hands, will likely have far more issues with Artem, especially considering how durable Artem is. As someone who appreciates the art and philosophy of martial arts, I'm currently very happy with both mixed martial arts and boxing, as they allow you to see more of just that. They allow you to see more of the technical aspect of martial arts. That slowly starts to diminish more and more as time progresses in an ungloved bout, as without your hands, you slowly lose the capacity to execute that finesse. What do you guys think though? I'd love to hear your opinion. If you like more from me, please subscribe and hit the notifications. Thank you if you did. Smash the like button if you enjoyed. It's GOAT Karma. And until next time, peace.